The leadership in Toastmasters is a servant leader model, looking for how can I improve my members, how can I help them. That's true leadership. Hi, very happy to be here. Thank you everybody for coming. It's great to see everybody here at CTBC. And Connie, it's my first time coming to CTBC too. So I've been in Toastmasters for 11 years and it's the very first time that I've actually joined this club. Just a quick question. How many of you have joined a contest at any point in Toastmasters, whether it's Chinese or English? Yeah, a couple of people, right? And what did you think of the experience? Did you enjoy it or not?
Stressful.
Stressful. How many times have you joined, Connie?
Just one time.
One time. Who else has entered? Johnson, how many times?
Me?
Yeah.
For the contestant?
Yes. One time. Iris? One time, yeah. Okay, for me, I've been in Toastmasters since 2014, and I asked Connie, what do you want me to talk about? And she said, your contest journey. So it's very difficult to talk about my contest journey because when does it start? Is it this year or is it the 11-year journey? I gave my icebreaker speech was actually in a contest. I had no idea. But by the way, I will make this available on PDF to everybody later, so you don't need to take pictures. If you give your email to somebody, I'll ask Connie to mail you the PDF. Yeah, that's fine. So you don't need to take pictures. So the very first contest I entered was in 2014 at the club, and it was called The Book That Changed My Life. It was my icebreaker speech, and I lost to our charter president, Lester Lynn, with his famous speech, The Face of Brotherly Love. And then in 2015, I joined again with a speech called Let It Go. In 2017, I got knocked out in the Division G final by Amanda Wee, who I think she was in Sparkle or some other club. But anyway, there you can see my complete Toastmasters journey. And I have won it twice. I won in 2020, but that felt a little bit shallow because I won online. You know, it was during COVID and we were doing it all on Zoom. And when I won, it was like, the cat was like, where's my dinner? So it wasn't so exciting. And then in 2023, 2024, and 2025, I joined again. It's been quite a journey. This year was especially interesting, and I'll spend some time just sharing with you some of the ways I approach contests and public speaking in general, and hopefully it can be of some help to you as well. Just before we begin, it's impossible to enter speech contests or to do well in public speaking without a team. This has been my team for more than a decade, or almost a decade. On the left here, we have the irrepressible Joseph Kalpin, who has been my main cheerleader. Whenever I'm feeling down or just don't want to carry on, Joe comes in and he's like, go Paul, go Paul. You've got Iris, who's my big cheerleader, who makes sure I have lots of food to eat and never hungry and well nourished. We've got Doug, who gives me the intellectual input. We've got Lester on the bottom there, who will always, like one day before the speech, suggest multiple changes and say, you need to revise your whole speech. And I'm like, really? That's not a good idea to change my whole speech one day before. Sorry, it's okay. I'll speak without a microphone, it's fine. And then Eric Ma, who's also one of my great speech editors. So without this team behind me for the last 11 years, much of my speaking journey would not have been possible. So I'm very pleased that I have these people in my corner. And I would suggest, if you want to do any public speaking of any sort, build a team around you that's going to be supportive of you. And so the one thing I also want to reiterate is that there's one person I always speak in honor of, and that's my late wife, Queenie. Without Queenie, I would never have joined Toastmasters. She was the one who sucked me in. She was the one who encouraged me to compete. And in fact, please come in, John. Yeah. And she was the one who I competed against in 2019. We were in exactly the same semi-final when she did her famous speech, Pancake Time All the Time. And some of the best memories of competitions are with her in Kaohsiung in the hotel restaurant. When the restaurant had closed, we were practicing in the restaurant the night before the contest. It was a fantastic time. Unfortunately, she was the very first speaker in the semi-final. I think she was the fourth or fifth speaker. She would have got into the final, but unfortunately, we did not manage to make it to the finals together. But that's just a little bit about the people who are behind me. But what about the ways that I prepare for a speech? And so whenever I do public speaking, I just like to get a notion of what do you think are the rules for a good speech? Now, Iris and Eric, you kind of know one of my most important rules, and maybe John too. But just the rest of you, what do you think is the most important thing about public speaking when you're getting ready for a speech? What do you think is important? The story? Yeah, what else? Connecting with the audience, what else? Anybody? Core message, having a core message. Anything else? Passion. Have passion, yeah, have passion, right? If you don't love what you're doing, it's going to be very, very difficult to do it well, right? Any other rules for public speaking? Anybody else? Inspiring, be inspiring. Anything else? John, what do you think?
Being
Humorous, be humorous, right? So we all have an idea of what it takes to have 4 rules. And whenever I do public speaking training, I always go and ask the audience, what do you think makes a good speech, right? And everybody will say, well, I'll ask them, what is a good speech for you? And most often they'll say, well, Steve Jobs, don't be, stay hungry, stay foolish. Or, for me, it's always the example of Donald Trump, make America great again. But for other people, be like Obama, right? Yes, we can. It's all these speeches that sit in our mind. And of course, the greatest speech of all is, I have a dream. For Toastmasters, the greatest speech of all is, I see something in you, but I don't know what it is. So we see all these speeches, and the one question I always ask people is, what do you think are the 4 rules of public speaking? These are pretty much the things I follow. And so my rule number 1, and today whenever I say rule number 1 or rule number 2 or rule number 3 or rule number 4, you need to tell me what those rules are. And this is the way it sticks in your mind, okay? So rule number 1 for me has always been, have fun. Rule number 1? Okay, we've got to do better than that, okay? But rule number 1 is have fun. I promise you, if you're not standing on stage having fun, you're going to be dying. I'll get into a little bit more detail later. Rule number 2 is?
Don't be boring.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Don't be boring.
Exactly, don't be boring, right? And you'll say, well, Paul, what's the difference between having fun and not being boring? What's the difference? Having fun is for me.
Oh, okay.
Boring is for the audience.
Okay.
I must be having fun on the stage. If I'm having fun on the stage, that's a good thing. I might be having fun on the stage and you guys might be bored. That's a bad thing. All right, so you've got to think about both sides, right? Firstly, you've got to be having fun, and secondly, the audience has to be entertained, okay? Rule number 3 is, hey, there has to be a problem here. Okay. Huh? Okay, one more time. Make me hear you, right? And I'll get into this in more detail, but the 3rd rule of public speaking is to make the audience hear you, no matter what you do. If you have to take your shoe off and throw your shoe at them because they're sleeping, wake them up. Make them hear you, okay? That's the 3rd rule of public speaking. And this also, by the way, many of you are professionals. This also applies to your presentations when you're giving them in a company. You've got to make people hear you, and I'll get into that later. And the 4th one is, be a better person. So rule number 1? Come on, everybody, louder. Rule number 1? Rule number 2? Rule number 3? Rule number 4? And now I know what you're going to say. Well, why do you have these rules, Paul? I promise you, I did not make these rules up. I just put them all together. I stole them from other people. And so I'm going to share with you the people I stole them from. And when you see who I stole them from, you might think, wow, these rules are quite important. Okay? So I promise you, if you do this, you can be a champion speaker if you follow these 4 rules. So the first rule comes from Tony Robbins. How many of you know Tony Robbins? Anybody? A couple of people, right? Tony Robbins is probably one of the most famous motivational speakers in America. He started with nothing, and now his net worth is $5 billion. Just because he knows how to speak well. And I was going through YouTube once, putting together a workshop for public speaking, and I came across a very, very old video of Tony Robbins, and he's in a pair of shorts and a vest. And he must be like 24 years old. And the thing he says is, everybody read for me, if you're not, I can't hear you. Yes, if you're not having fun, you are dying. If you as a speaker are not having fun on the stage, you're dying. And if you're dying, they're dying. If you're dying, they're dying. So the most important thing when you get on a stage, whatever it is, you've got to lose any pretensions you have about not having fun and just get up there and have fun. A long, long time ago in our club, we had a member called Ruby. And Ruby was about this high, and she was going to give her icebreaker speech. And Ruby came to me before her icebreaker said, what should I do? What should I do? And I said, rule number 1, have fun. And she, what? I said, that's it, just go have fun. And I tell that to every new speaker in Toastmasters. If you're doing your icebreaker, if you're entering a competition, once you're there, once you're on the stage, once you're facing an audience, just have fun. Even if you're doing a presentation to the board, try and have some fun with it. They might not appreciate it, but always try and have fun by yourself, okay? So Tony Robbins, if you're not having fun, you're dying. Educate by entertaining. Educate by entertaining. So let's revise. Rule number 1? Rule number 1? Very good, okay. And I'll explain why I want you to repeat it later in a moment as well. All right, rule number 2?
Don't be boring.
Yes, rule number 2 is don't be boring. Now, do any of you recognize this guy? His name is Darren LaCroix. He was the world champion of public speaking in, I think, 2000 or 2001. In 2016, he came to Taiwan, and I had the great pleasure to meet Darren LaCroix, and I think that in some way I can call him a distant friend. We have a lot of mutual respect for each other. I love Darren. He's awesome. Whenever I message him, when Joe and I started the podcast last year, we sent it to him, and he was so encouraging about our podcast. But maybe some of you will know Darren LaCroix. But who's the lady? Patricia Fripp. Patricia Fripp used to be a hairdresser, and she went from being a hairdresser to one of the top public speaking coaches in America. To hire her for a day was about $10,000 one day. You hire her for one day to teach you public speaking, she would charge you $10,000. And I was going through, a long time ago, I was going through a bunch of keynote speeches at Toastmasters International Conference. And she was giving the keynote speech, and I was fascinated by her speech. And what she said was, everybody read for me, your audience. Your audience will forgive you anything except being boring. And so I know, like, this is not really advice like, oh, write your speech, have a good opening, have a good conclusion, have a good structure. But if you don't have those things, your speech will be boring. And so when I saw this from Patricia Fripp, I thought, this is one of the most important things I can teach people when I coach public speaking is don't be boring. And the reason why I say this, especially in Taiwan, is I used to teach professors. And I coach professors. And the professors say, help me with my English because I am a very good public speaker. And I'll say, really? How good are you? So I have been teaching in Taiwan for 20 years. So great. And then this is how they'll speak. 你好。我是你们的教授，我很开心今天来了。你可以开你们的书，好，看第一页，好，我们一直看书。And that's how they will speak for 40 minutes. And they think they're great public speakers. They're boring. And when I try and encourage them to be interesting, they're just like, not interested, right? So what's rule number 1? Rule number 2? All right. Usually when I don't do boring, what I usually do, but I usually do this with soldiers, so like, don't be boring, baby. But we won't do that today. Anyway, so rule number 1, have fun. Rule number 2, don't be boring. If you're having fun, you're not dying, they're not dying. If you're like, you're out. If you're boring, they're sleeping, and you're talking into a vacuum. What's rule number 3, do you remember?
Make them hear you.
Make them hear you. And this is especially important. Make them hear you. And this comes from a guy called, he's not there, I couldn't find a decent picture of him, but a guy called Robert Herjavec. How many of you know that name, Robert Herjavec? Anybody? How many of you watch the TV show The Shark Tank? Right. He's on the TV show The Shark Tank. And I watched every episode of The Shark Tank from season 1 to season 12, and then I stopped. But there was something he said that if you don't know what the Shark Tank is, the Shark Tank are a bunch of American billionaires sitting on a stage. A bunch of American billionaires sitting on a stage, and people will come in and they will say, they will pitch their product or their company and say, we are looking for $100,000 or 10% equity in our company. That's how they always start. And they're trying to get money from the investors so that they can actually grow their businesses. And there was a guy who got on the stage, and you have like 4 or 5 of them sitting on the stage, and they were like, I'm out. And then he's like, Robert, please invest in my company. But his presentation was an absolute mess. And Robert Hajevak said, I'm out. And the guy turned around to Robert Hajevak and said, it's not fair. You didn't listen. It's not fair. You didn't listen. And his reply was, it's not my responsibility to listen. It's your responsibility to make me hear you. So often as speakers, we get on the stage and we think, because I'm standing here, you have to listen to me because I'm like, I don't know, God or something. No, absolutely not. One of my great mentors gets very frustrated when he sees people inside a Toastmasters meeting looking at a mobile phone. And he will like yell at them. But the point is, if people on their mobile phones, you know what? It's your fault as the speaker. Your speech is not captivating enough. Your speech is not powerful enough. Your speech is not gripping enough. It is your responsibility to get people into your speech. It's your responsibility to have a strong core message. It's your responsibility to master your voice. To go up, to go down. It's your responsibility to be able to have effective body language on the stage. And I'm not talking about what we talk about in Toastmasters, like jumping up and down. I'm talking about confident posture, pose, smile, eye contact with people. It is our responsibility to make people listen. You guys have all spent your time, some energy, and even a little bit of money to walk into this workshop today. It is my responsibility to make you hear me. It's not your responsibility to listen. If you guys start reading a book, great. I won't say anything. I hope you don't. But it really is, as the speaker, it's our responsibility to take it on ourselves to make people hear us. And there are ways you do that. I heard people talk about humor or a strong core message or a good structure. These are all parts of it. But if you adopt the mindset that it is my responsibility to make you hear me, then you know what? You'll be good. And so what's rule number 1? Rule number 2? Rule number 3? All right. Now, I'm going through these pretty quickly. Usually I do these rules in a 3-hour workshop. And I'll give you the context later. And there's a lot of things we can add on to this to show you how to do that. And we're going to talk about that later. But for now, just try and remember these rules and hang on to these rules. And I will show you how they relate to the speeches that I've done in a moment. Do you remember what the 4th rule is?
Be a better person.
That's fantastic. Connie's got a good memory, right? Be a better person. This is Dhananjaya Hadiarachi, and he came to our Toastmasters Toastmasters conference in 2017 when we had it down in Tainan. And in his keynote speech, he blew everybody away with this one sentence: to be a better speaker, to be a better leader, be a better person. And I cannot tell you how many people were at that conference, they forgot everything else he said, except this one line: be a better person. If you want to be a good speaker, find the stories that are going to help you grow. Find the stories that are going to make you a better person. Over the years, and I will show you how that's actually helped me in my speech journey in contests. But I think this is one of the most important rules and one of the most important things we must follow. Is if we are in Toastmasters and we're not growing as people, if we come into it with pride or arrogance, then we're not growing as people. So the most important thing is to find ways that we can improve as people. So often we come into Toastmasters and we think, oh, we're going to be leaders or we're going to be all this. Nah. The leadership in Toastmasters is a servant leader model. It's the hours and hours and hours that Connie spends in this club, working for this club. I've known Connie for 10, maybe 11 years. And I know how much she loves this club in CTBC. She loves CTBC as much as I love TGIF. And the great effort that Connie's put in over a decade, more than a decade, she's been in it longer than me, for more than a decade, that servant approach, never looking for her own glory, but looking for how can I improve my members? How can I help them? That's true leadership. Inviting people to regularly come to this venue to give workshops. That's what it's about. It's about becoming better people for the people we serve as leaders. And so if your position over here is like, get on the stage, it's like, man, I'm the king. Nah. Got to be a little bit more humble than that. And you got to always try and be a better person. So let's review. Rule number 1. Rule number 2. Rule number 3. Rule number 4. That's fantastic, yeah? Oh, what's happening? I'm pushing it on once again. I think I'm pushing it. Okay, so I have no idea what I'm doing. Okay, I'm pushing it. So those are the 4 rules, right? Now, a little bit of context to this. A few years ago at my university, when I was they asked me to go teach the military in a place called Chengongling. And Chengongling, they put me in a room, dressed in a suit like this, on a hot summer's day, no air conditioners, just fans, and 400 people. And I got to go and give this workshop for 3 hours. And I did. And I entertained them, and we had a great time, and nobody fell asleep. And these guys are tired. And then about 2 years after, and I gave the workshop about 20 times or something. And about 2 years after giving one cohort this workshop, I live on Le Li Lu, and on Le Li Lu there's a very, very famous Rotao restaurant. You know the one? Yeah, everybody knows the one on Le Li Lu. And I was walking out of the Rotao restaurant, and these 3 or 4 young guys, I can't remember how many, came running up to me and said, Teacher Paul! I'm like, hi, who are you? And they're like, oh, we're from Chengongling. I'm like, oh, that's going to be too hard to remember who you are. And they said, yeah, we're from Chengongling. I said, prove it. They said, how? I said, rule number 1. They're like, have fun. Rule number 2, don't be boring. Rule number 3. And they remembered all the rules. So if there's something you want to remember from today's workshop.
So maybe in a few years when you met Paul on the street.
Exactly. I came to your workshop. Rule number 1. Yeah. Okay. And once again, as I said, this is actually a 3-hour workshop that I do. But I wanted to show you how this applied to my speech journey. But before I get there, in between doing these workshops and recently, I discovered the 5th rule. The 5th rule. This is from my member, Jonathan Claassen. At our 10th anniversary, Jonathan Claassen was asked, what is one thing he wishes he had done when he first joined TGIF in 2014? And this is what he said. Talk about things you care about. Say things that are meaningful and deep. Talk from your heart. Forget about the body language. Forget about the vocal variety. Just talk about the things that come from your heart. And I think that this is the 5th rule. If we just go back and we look at the 4 rules, we will add a 5th rule onto that. Talk from your heart. Because I think that is the most important thing, is when we're talking from our hearts, it means something and it's meaningful, right? In Toastmasters, we are here to become better leaders, to become better speakers, better communicators. And I know a lot of the things we talk about in Toastmasters, maybe my vacation to the Maldives, you often wonder, how can that help me in my business? It gives you the confidence to present. It gives you the ability to actually build good speeches and presentations in a logical way. But at the end of the day, whenever you're standing in public, talk from your heart. If you want to be a great leader in your organization and you need to change direction, or a great manager, talk from your heart. Don't give the corporate line. Talk from your heart. When people are going to fire you, when you need to fire somebody, talk from your heart. When you need to hire someone, talk from your heart. I think that's the most meaningful thing, because when people just give this plastic, horrible, just this company line answer, it is not good. It hurts people. If you really care about someone, talk from your heart. And if you know me, I am unashamed to say what I think. All right? Today I saw a very good quote that said, if you have something to say but you are silent, it is a lie. And I really believe that we need to talk about the things that are in our heart, because those are the things that we can connect most meaningfully with. And so the next time I do this workshop in Chengongling, if they ever invite me back, since COVID they haven't, I will add the 5th rule, talk from your heart. And so I'm going to show you how this actually applies to my 11-year journey of public speaking in Taiwan. I would say that in 2023 and 2024, these were speeches that were genuinely from my heart. If you've known me for a little while, you will know that my wife died in my arms on the 3rd of December, 2022. At my speech competition, at TGIF they're doing a speech competition, in January, 1 month after my wife passed away. And I just stood up and I just wanted to share about Queenie. And because everybody at that speech knew Queenie, the speech did very well. And the speech was around the idea of what do you say to somebody on their deathbed? And what would you say to someone in this life? Because, I think I'm jumping the gun here, but I'll talk about it. Because one of the most terrible things I've ever heard in my life is one day before my wife died, I phoned her family. And her mother and her father were crying. And for the very first time in their lives, they told their daughter, who was in an induced coma, I love you. And this speech was to tell people in Taiwan, and yes, I say tell, not suggest, tell people in Taiwan, go tell those people who you love that you love them. It was all heart. There was no fun. I was probably very boring on the stage. It wasn't a fun speech to give. It was very difficult. It did make me a better person in many ways. And people did hear it. And it was all from my heart. The second one, The Road Back to You, that was also all from my heart. And that was from last year when I spoke about my own personal coming back to myself, finding out who I am again, because in the 4-year cancer struggle with Queenie, well, the 2 years that she struggled with cancer and the year after that, so about the 3-year journey after she passed, well, the 1-year journey after she passed and the 2 years of fighting cancer, and if you know me, you know I was in the hospital every day with her. That was like, and I lost myself. I completely lost myself in those hospitals. Every doctor's appointment I was there. And the road back to you was finding out how I could find out who I was again, because I lost myself in that fight. And so once again, it was all heart. It was all heart. But was it fun? No. Was it boring? Maybe. Did people hear me? Yes, they did. And people often came up to me afterwards and spoke about that speech with me. But these were not contest-winning speeches. That's what Jonathan said in his rule number 5. Say something that's meaningful and deep. Maybe you don't win a competition, but part of it is helping you heal, and part of it is helping you grow as a person. And so these two speeches are probably the most meaningful speeches I've ever given and the most difficult speeches I've ever given. The 2023 speech got 3rd place, and only got 3rd place because somebody went over time. I think if the person who didn't go over time was Sunny, if he didn't go over time, I would have been out. He would have won. I would have been 4th. And then the road back to you didn't even place in the top 3. It was in the top 6. Both were in the top 6, but they shouldn't have placed. And so when I say that these rules matter, they do matter. Maybe you don't always enter the speech competition to win, but always find the stories that mean something to you and share those stories. And so Connie asked me to share a little bit about, I don't even know how much time I've got. I'm going too quick, yeah?
16.
Oh, 60 minutes.
30 seconds.
Okay, well, we're going to finish this a little bit early. But anyway, Connie did ask me to share a little bit about the speech that I actually gave that won the national competition today.
I heard your 2017 version of the Ghost.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll teach you maybe.
Yes, maybe, yeah. So in 2017, as I said, if you go back to this page over here, see 2017, I gave a speech called Ghost. And then in 2025, I gave a speech called The Ghost Will Be Gone. Ghost got knocked out in the Division G final by Amanda Wee. And you know what Amanda Wee's speech was about? Does anybody remember? It was in Thailand. She came 3rd place. Her speech was about the first time she told her mother, I love you. The same message as my 2023 speech. The very first time she told her mother, I love you. And she completely deserved to knock me out. Her speech was better than mine. It was. But then last year, my EVP, Joseph Kalpen, said to me, he needs somebody to, okay, fine, I can do that. I can enter the speech competition. But originally I wasn't going to, because I had been asked to do a workshop at the conference. And then like 5 days before our in-house contest, I got cancelled from the conference. Somebody from above decided that I wouldn't be a very good workshop giver at the conference. I said, okay, fine. But then Joe said, well, you're not giving a speech at a workshop at the conference, give a speech. So I thought, okay, well, the only one I can actually have any remoteness with is Ghost. And so I took a Ghost out of my back pocket and I just gave it. And Ghost is the story about my fear of public speaking. Believe it or not, before the age of 43, I was terrified of public speaking. I would not stand in a crowd and speak. I would run away. If people said, Paul, speak, I'd be the first one in that room over there hiding away like a coward. I hated public speaking, and mostly because of things that happened to me in high school. For some reason, my teachers always wanted me to speak in front of the school, and for some reason, the school hated me. And they always booed me and threw things at me. Maybe it was just boys being boys, but I don't know. I went to a boys' school, but they were cruel. And after high school, I decided, that's it. I'm done with public speaking. Never again will I ever speak in public. And then my wife dragged me into Toastmasters in 2014. She made me join. She forced me to join, right? So I joined, and then Lester started pushing me to enter speech competitions, so I did. So anyway, the original speech Ghost was about my fear of public speaking. And it transformed into The Ghost Will Be Gone. And the way that happened was, this year, I got beaten in the area contest by Derek Chin. He spoke about out of the box, but I came second. So the top 2 places can go through to the division final. So I went to the Division H final, and I really gave my best speech about my fear of public speaking, Ghost. And I won. And then I knew I was going to the division final, the district semifinals. But the speech is about public speaking. And I heard on the grapevine that the Division C winner, Alison Huang, who beat me last year, came second last year, her speech was also about overcoming her fear of public speaking. And I thought, no, we can't have 2 of the same speeches. So I let that sit for a long, long time. And I didn't write any speech. And Eric and Doug and Joe was like, have you written your speech? No. Have you written your speech? No. Have you written your speech? No. 1 week before the conference, the Thursday before the conference, so about 9 days before the conference, one night I sat down and I wrote my speech. 9 days before, I wrote the speech. But I reimagined the speech in my head. And this is something also important. Maybe you have a good speech, but maybe you can also change the speech or revitalize it. And I said, what is actually the core issue? The core issue is not the fear of public speaking, but self-doubt. It's those negative voices inside our head. And so then I started to think about all the negative voices in my head over the years. And I changed the speech from being my fear of public speaking to something that is relatable to everybody. The fear of the negative voices inside our heads. The things that cause us to doubt ourselves, the voices that make us think that we are not good enough. And the solution to that problem. And I prepared that speech and I sent it to my friend Eric 1 week before. That speech was never practiced in front of anybody. The very first time I ever gave that speech was in the semifinal. The second time I gave that speech was in the final. And the third time I give that speech, if I can remember it, will be tonight. If I can remember it. Please. But that speech was never practiced. It was never coached. It was all me just being me. And when I look at that speech, I need to talk about the transformation of that speech, because initially it was my speech. I wrote that speech and it was very, very dark. It was very dark. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, I sent it to my friend Eric.
Did you specifically pick the graph with CTBC in your background?
No, but it's a good thing, right? Yeah. Oh, there it is. There you go. Yeah. Good. Promoting you. Yay! Connect with your audience. Whew. Yeah. So I sent the speech to Eric at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I went to bed. And I woke up the next day, and there were like 3 missed calls from Eric and a completely revised speech. My speech went from 900 words to 620 words. He cut out so much. And I phoned him and I said, hey, I don't think this is enough here. And he says, Paul, if you give that speech that you had written, they will think you're crazy, and they will put you in a mental asylum. I sent it to my friend Douglas Gilmartin, and his reply to me was, I really have no idea what to do with this speech. All I know is it's 3 pages of darkness and three sentences of light. The balance is wrong. Because the speech deals with all the mental health issues that I've suffered by myself silently since my wife died. I'm a South African person, and I'm a very proud man, and I'm very proud to be a man. Men are not meant to be weak. Men are never meant to be fragile emotionally. But there is something called post-traumatic stress disorder. There are things that we struggle with. I shared this in my speech after I gave the speech, that 70% of all suicides in the world, 75% of all suicides in the world are men. 69% of all suicides in the United States are white men. Men are 2.35 times more likely to kill themselves than a woman. The mental crisis for men is immense, and we are too silent. And that's what that speech is basically about. It's about those negative voices inside your head. After Queenie died, and it's in my speech, but I had promised Queenie that I would find a way to save her life. And I fought those doctors every day. I fought those doctors. At the end, there was one doctor who particularly hated me, and I was okay with that. But when I went to get the final sign-off for all the insurance stuff, he looked at me and I said, Doctor, I know we've had our disagreements, but thank you so much for everything you did for my wife. I know you tried. And he looked at me, he stood up, he shook my hand, he said, Paul, I never met a husband like you who fought so hard. And we were parted as friends. But you can imagine going through all that, what it does to your head. And it did a lot to my head. A lot of things happened in her family after that. A lot of things happened in my own life after that, where there was even more loss. And that mental space just gets invaded. And on the outside, people, hey, Paul, how are you doing? Hey, I'm good. How are you? Nice to see you. Hey, welcome to TGI Christian Toastmasters. Welcome to Born to Shine Christian Toastmasters. Hey, let's go out for a beer. Let's have a joke. Let's have a laugh. But inside, it's a different story. And so when I sent the speech to Eric was like, dude, you can't give this speech. They're going to put you in hospital and lock the door. And he sent that speech back. And then I sent that speech to Doug. And Doug was like, whew, something to work with. And he added things on. But without Eric, this speech would not have been a winning speech. And so when I got off the stage at the final and I went up to Eric, I said, this is not my speech. It's our speech. It's certainly my stories. But the way he changed it, the way he added humor into it, and he completely changed my conclusion. The ghost will be gone is the conclusion of the speech. My original speech is The Ghosts Aren't Real. That was the original title of the speech, The Ghosts Aren't Real. And I ended up, and now I know that the ghosts aren't real. And he wrote the line, the conclusion, and the ghosts will be gone. And it was the perfect ending and the perfect title for the speech. And so find the person in your life that can be very honest and critical about your speeches, who can transform your speeches into something magical. Very often we write a speech and that speech is so personal, we don't want to cut anything out of it. It's our story. Everything is important. Every word is important. But it's not. You can give the same message. You can give the same speech. You can give the same story, just in a different way. My one great mentor, Neil Stovacek, says, Paul, you can say the same thing 1,000 times. The same thing in 1,000 different ways. 1,000 times in 1,000 different ways. That's what he always reminds me of. He says you could say the same thing 1,000 ways, 1,000 times. And so it's important to remember that if you are entering a speech contest, if you are writing a speech or a presentation for your company, have the right coaches around you to help transform that speech into something magical. For me, Eric transformed my speech into something that became our speech. And I will never forget that. And he even put jokes in about him inside there. I said, dude, I can't say this. This is rude. And he said, no, it's okay. You can make fun of me. I'm like, okay. So there's even jokes about Eric there. You know, Kim Jong-un. Yeah, he's Kim Jong-un, right? And so he's even in the speech, and he had a good laugh out of that. And what he did with that speech was he took something that was very difficult to talk about, mental health issues, in a way that's humorous, that was engaging, and that got people to listen and be involved in the speech. And so for me, it's our speech, and that was the transformation. So when I look at this trilogy, as I've already discussed, I would say that these two speeches were definitely from the heart. But the last one was all five. When I look at these 5 rules, I'm just going to run through them very quickly. So when I look at these 5 rules, I would say that this speech, this time, hit every single parameter. It was fun to give. It wasn't boring. People were hearing me. I became a better person doing it because I became unafraid to talk about the mental health issues that I'm dealing with. And it was really a speech from my heart. There's one final lesson to remember is humility. I think the most important thing that I learned in this 11-year journey was when I first joined Toastmasters, it's like, my English is great. And then all the Taiwanese people beat me. It's like, oh. And you realize that public speaking is not about how good your English or Chinese is. Public speaking is about just how effectively you communicate. My proudest moment ever in Toastmasters is coming 3rd in a Chinese evaluation contest when I did not understand the speech at all. I was competing against 11 other Taiwanese people, and I got up there and I had no clue what the guy was saying, but I managed to come 3rd in the evaluation contest. But that's a different story. But it's having humility, realizing that there's always something to learn. And so this is one final lesson I learned on 11 years of speaking. I think I missed something out here. I think I missed something. I left out a slide, I think. Okay. But what I did want to say was, when you look at these speeches, and I just want to talk about this a little bit more, there's only 2 speeches on this list that hit all 5 of those rules. The first one, and I won with, my other one that I won with is only Idiots Jump Off Trains, but that's not the one. The one that I won with came 3rd with, is How Can I Help You? That's the story of me losing my bag in Sri Lanka. And this speech was fun. It wasn't boring. People really heard it. It was a great story. I became a better person because of it, because I really got a very powerful life lesson out of it. And it really was from my heart. It was a story about how this very poor guy in Sri Lanka helped me find my wallet, my passport, and my cameras after I lost it on a bus. And it was a really powerful life lesson that we don't change the world by building big, beautiful buildings like CTBC. We change the world by asking people, how can I help you? And so I think this speech, but it only came 3rd, and this speech were the ones that hit all 5 rules that I articulated. And so let's just go through them. What's rule number 1? Rule number 2? Rule number 3? Rule number 4? Rule number 5? Yes, and then the final lesson is humility. And so I just want to say that if you learn to talk from your heart, if you really, in Toastmasters especially, learn to talk from your heart, if you're leading people and you learn to talk from your heart, if you have to give a meeting to motivate your staff or your friends, if you talk from your heart, they will listen to you. And stay humble always. If you learn how to talk from your heart, and when you stand on the stage, stay humble. This competition, I realized that when I was standing there with the 6 other finalists, I was the only one who had been in the final before. Every one of the other 5 contestants was their first time. And that was a very meaningful experience for me, because then I was able to mentor them. The girl sitting next to me was a young girl called Diana from Kaohsiung. I'm 54, she's 21. The guy who spoke first, Xavier, he's in his early 20s. Realizing that no matter how old you are, those people, their stories matter and are important too. And so always being humble to that and being willing to accept that, it's a very important part of what we do at Toastmasters. So I think if you talk from your heart and you stay humble, your ghosts about public speaking will surely be gone. Thank you very much, Connie.